So make sure that you're checking in on that for other updates from the evening. And on top of that, we've got our second giveaway of the night going. So if you want a chance at one of these $50 Visa gift cards that we're going to be handing out, I need you to drop your favorite GIF in the comments. We are asking you to post a GIF that best describes how you feel on election night, and we're going to be picking our favorite one as the winner. So drop your GIFs in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Katie, who's going to introduce the guests that we've got here with us.
Hey all, thank you so much for joining us. So we have with us Dr. Robert Watson and Dean George, two high school history and civics teachers from Mansfield City Schools, Mansfield Senior High. They're also youth and government advisors. So thank you both so much for joining us today. Could you start off by just telling us a little bit about the classes you teach, what ages, what materials you cover, things like that?
Well, it can change from year to year, but this year I'm teaching AP Government. I have one class, and then I have 4 classes of regular government. So other years it changes, where I'll be teaching like AP African American History or African American and whatever they throw at me that nobody else wants. Mr. George?
Then I've got 4 government classes, and then this year I'm actually teaching an elective called American Justice. So that's kind of about, everyone's personal liberties and personal rights and everything. So I deal mostly with sophomores to seniors.
Wow, that class sounds really cool. I wish that I'd gotten to take a class like that in high school.
It's fun. I've gotten to have a couple guest speakers come in. I've had like a prosecuting attorney. I had a police officer. I had someone that kind of deals with like business law, stuff like that. So I'm always looking for people to come in and talk to the kids, and they get tired of listening to me.
Hey, hear that. If anyone out there is a lawyer or something.
Yep, hit me up.
Awesome. Well, I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit about how students kind of respond to these classes. Do you find that like they're pretty invested, or are there certain activities that they maybe engage with the most? Can you kind of give us an idea of what that looks like?
They always start off like they hate government and they hate everything. But as soon as you start talking about how it connects with just the contrast of power, can you hold power, and why do we get to pick our own leaders? And that we relate it back to, wouldn't you like to pick who your principal is? Wouldn't you like to be able to control things? How big is the playbook and the Constitution? And, we show them Germany's playbook, and then we show them our Constitution, which is about 8 pages. Like, you should just thank God you're here in America. And they start just like ask questions, and then we sort of get a hook. But
Well, I think we both do a good job we're both very passionate about the stuff that we do teach. And I think they kind of pick up on our excitement sometimes. So they see that we love what we do. So there's a lot of times that they're kind of forced to go along with that. And if anything, they think we're really dorky and goofy, but, it gets them smiling at the end of the day.
Yeah. Are there any like big projects that you guys do with your classes that you could give us a little bit of insight on too?
Well, right now, special for the election, we kind of recreated the Richland County ballot in a Google form. So we're having our kids kind of go through their own election day with more than just the president. They're going to get to vote for county commissioner and state rep and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But before they get to do that, we wanted to teach them about being informed voters. So we wrote up a whole document. It's kind of got a chart where they can compare and contrast the different candidates, and they can pick who they like for each race. That way they're not just stepping up to the ballot box, so to speak, and picking based on name. They kind of have a little bit of background to go with, what that person represents.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So in addition to the classes, you guys have a club that you advise youth in government. I've had the pleasure of interviewing some of your youth in government students, but for those who may not be familiar with that program, can you tell us a little bit about that?
sure, Youth in Government sponsored by the YMCA, and so the YMCA Youth in Government is in all 50 states. And it's where students, people talk about it like it's mock government or mock UN, and there's other programs, but the YMCA program has been going on for over like 50 or 60 years here in Ohio. And the kids, they have to write a bill, something they want to change in Ohio, and they do some bills that are actually really intriguing, and some are just really stupid, which makes it really fun for us. But they go down to the State House and actually have to argue them in subcommittees in the actual subcommittee rooms, and they get to go to the actual Senate and House floors if it passes to go work there and then cross over, which no one's allowed on those floors except for the actual senators and congressmen and us. So they get to experience government, and we found out we try to take kids that are interested, not the kids that are like, oh, this kid will be really great for him or her. We really want to take kids that have any interest, and you see kids that are C students, and you see their understanding of government work better because they're just walking through it. And they're like, wait a minute, to get to the House or the Senate, it's only like 25 yards. It's right there. You can see it. Yes, you can see it. You can walk there. And they start to understand the process, and then they realize they can actually make a change, and then they start writing bills that are unique.
Well, they kind of pick up on the relationship. So they'll look at stuff like, oh, that girl voted against my bill, so I'm not going to vote for her bill. Or, you know, she was mean to me in the lunch line, so I'm not going to vote for her bill. So they kind of realize some of the relationships, like how it goes together, how you need to kind of make friends with other people in order to get your own stuff passed.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Is there like one bill that sticks out in your guys' mind as like a really interesting one or like a really goofy one that you've had?
I know this year we had a couple kids. They debated it on the floor. They got it passed in both houses, and then the youth governor signed it into law. We had two kids that wanted to write a bill to expand the species of monkeys that you can own here in Ohio. They said there's only a couple species that you can own, and they did a bunch of research on more monkeys that, you know, other states allow you to own, or we should be able to own here in Ohio.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
So random. I want to know what motivated them to do that.
Yeah. Like, how do you come up with the monkey thing?
We had a girl who wrote a bill on making sure that purified water was in every school and accessible for students. And I said, how are you going to do this? You have to, well, the state should pay for it. The state doesn't just throw out money. So we came up with how you would get water filters at other companies. She'd researched it, brought it up, and said, if you put a 2-cent tax on every sale of soda, so like if it's a 2-liter bottle or a 6-pack or a 12-pack, and she'd done the research how much was sold, she goes, you'd come up with like $18 million a year. You could put water filtration in every high school within 3 years, and then you could keep with that money replenishing the number of filters, so the schools wouldn't have to pay for it. So it's like a sin tax, but it wouldn't be enough to bother anyone. And I was like, okay, that was actually smart. She's going somewhere in college. She's going to do something that's going to rock somebody's world down the road.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really encouraging your students to think critically and think through not just what would be great, but how to actually make that happen.
We try to we challenge them on everything. We try to be. Everybody wants us to be neutral, and we try to play the opposite end. We play the devil's advocate a lot of times. So, I mean, even this time of the year with elections, every class, half of them think we're voting for one party, and the other half thinks we're voting for another, because whatever they start with, we challenge them on the other end.
And even we try and show them that a lot of people have opinions, but what are you going to do with that opinion? Mm-hmm. Are you going to take the steps to actually change something, or are you just going to leave it as that, leave it as an opinion, and throw it into the void somewhere?
Yeah. So is it different teaching government and teaching civics during an election year?
I think so. This is my first election year that I've gotten to teach, and I've gotten a lot more questions this year about, they want to know who we're voting for, they want to know which side we're on, and even just, I think the kids have taken a little more of an interest this year with the election, so just asking us more questions about how it works, how things are going to go in the different states, how one state affects another state, things like that.
I had to change my sequence. Mm-hmm. Normally I get to elections and the Electoral College later on, after Christmas, around February. And you have to start things earlier. Now, I'm not going to do the whole concept because there's certain elements they don't have. We're scaffolding them, building them up to where they need to be for the state tests. But you have to go over the election stuff earlier and make that process going, because it's election night tonight. So they had to know how that process worked leading up to it.
Yeah. And your students, most of them probably aren't old enough to vote yet, but you make them research as if they're going to the ballot. Isn't that right?
We keep telling them this is what your parents are doing at home. Realistically, many of them may not be researching at home, but we're trying to instill this is what a citizen does. You research, who is this person? Do I like them? Do I not like them? And maybe you can get to know them. And that's why we want to bring people into our schools and actually let them meet these people.
Right.
Well, I even told my kids, if you feel very passionately about a candidate or against a candidate, tell your parents. Because I know a lot of times those smaller races, the local races and stuff, that people might not have the same opinion. So I was like, if you feel something, tell your parents. See
Yeah.
if they can kind of place that vote for you.
I was going to say, I'm curious to hear a little bit about like what resources you're pointing your students towards locally. Is there, like where are you telling them to kind of go to do some of this research?
Just kind of some of the local newspapers have posted good election guides.
I mean, the best is obviously the Richland Source.
Yes, clearly.
I was not trying to get you to say that.
This
curious.
is not a sponsored message.
not a
We
sponsored
swear.
message.
But we did add some hot links to the Richland Source for local information because you guys actually do it. For local information, they're like, you're not going to go to a Cleveland paper and get information on what's happening in Mansfield. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you. We love to hear that.
We also, we were challenged this year to do a candidates night.
Okay.
And we did it the night before your candidates night. So we didn't have as many people that came, but it was a first blush of how to do something like that, have candidates come to our school, because in the future we would like to see the high school, which is a place of learning, for people to come even after their parents to come and learn about issues and about who these candidates are. So some of them came in and they gave their 5-minute speech and they got to know them and then talked to them afterwards. And a lot of the kids were impressed with some of the speakers. Like, I really thought I really like this lady. She impressed me. And I'm like, then go talk to them. Go take a selfie. And so we want them to engage. And it doesn't matter which party it is. The point is getting them to engage so they can be civic-minded, so we can increase the voter ability, the people that are actually voting in this region. Because if they don't give their voice, I mean, it's really sad.
Yeah.
I've even had kids in class who maybe attended the candidates night as either like working it or as a student just asking questions and stuff. And someone else in class will bring up a certain candidate, and one of the students that were there will yell out something like, "Oh, they're really nice," or "Oh no, don't vote for that person." So it's kind of fun to see their opinions and kind of what they took from the candidates night,
Yeah. That's
even though
awesome.
they aren't necessarily old enough to vote.
That's awesome. So for the students that you guys do have that are old enough to vote, are you guys encouraging them to do like the voter registration form? Is that something that like you've brought into your classroom? What does that kind of look like for you guys?
I have in the past. I don't have, every person that I have that is 18 years old and could vote in this election had already registered. But I think, Mr. George, you were helping somebody this year or last year, just sat down and said, you're not leaving the classroom until.
Yeah, I know. The kids are never shy about when it's their birthday. And you can always tell when it's their 18th birthday because that's one of the big ones. So I always kindly gift them with a voter registration card. And a lot of them say, "Oh, I don't want to vote." I say, "I don't care. Now you at least have the choice. So if you don't want to vote, you don't have to. But now you can if you want to." So a lot of times I try and get them to fill it out there because I know that as soon as it leaves the room, it's not coming back.
Yeah.
So I try and encourage that, and then usually come springtime, I always have Matt and Jane from the Board of Elections come in, and it gives the kids, like last year they created kind of a mock election with, who's your favorite male athlete, who's your favorite female athlete, and they created a couple issues, and the kids got to practice taking the voter card, going and plugging it into the machine, pushing the buttons, and then getting their little I voted sticker. So it kind of allowed them to walk through the whole process and get them excited about voting.
And we all know that it sort of stuck because some kids were telling me this morning about that were in your study hall last year, how they like, are you bringing these people in? It was Matthew Santana. Yeah. So Matthew was talking and he's like, you got to bring them in again. They were great. So learning how to use the touch screen is just like an iPad.
Yeah.
Getting that process down takes some of that fear away we're hoping will take that fear away. So when they get time to vote, they won't be afraid to go vote. They'll just like, this is easy. I know what I'm doing. They'll walk in, research the people, and vote yes or no.
And you've made them research candidates in class before, so they'll know how to do that too.
Yep.
There you go. It all comes together.
Yep.
Well,
awesome.
there's
That's
a
what we're
method to our
hoping.
madness. We just
Yeah.
don't know if it's working, but
Yeah.
there's a method.
I love it. I love it. So I have one other question for you guys. So Katie and I got to attend this awesome Education Writers Association national seminar earlier this year, back in June. It was in Vegas. It was sweet, wonderful trip. But
I'm sorry, you said education in Vegas.
yes,
That's a contradiction in terms, but go right ahead. Just keep going with it. Yeah, it's
anyway,
fine.
We
there
learned a
was-
lot, we swear.
I promise. I promise. No. But there was an entire session that they had on civics education. So that's what you guys are doing, obviously. And the speakers had a really interesting point that they talked about. They talked about how one party tends to view civics education in terms of history and founding documents and that kind of a thing, while the other thinks more about public policy and modern day engagement, kind of like some of this stuff we were talking about with voter
Right.
registration for your students. And the speakers were making the argument that maybe it should be both. I'm kind of curious what you guys think of that dichotomy. Is it a one or the other thing, or is it a yes and?
I look at it as the state of Ohio has standards we're supposed to teach. And of those 28, 18 standards plus the another 28 substandards that go with it, you have to look at the documents and build upon that, which goes to policy, which then leads into how do you engage civics, and then how do you challenge and make those changes, with your rights, the civil rights. And so actually what you're talking about is all in our standards. So I think some people have done some work. Luckily, we're in Ohio, because I think some people have done that work in advance where one party does not control the standards.
Gotcha.
But I could be wrong. I mean, what do you think, Dean?
Well, I was going to say, like you said, we usually start the year teaching about the kind of history of it. We always like to, most of our class deals with the Constitution, so we always like to kind of tell the background history and like how it builds up to the Constitution, like why we have the rights that we do. And then toward the end of the year, we get into a lot of like local policy issues. I know I always give my kids a project where I make them come up with an issue in the community and then kind of figure out, again, how they would work to solve it. So I tell them by the time that this project is done, you should have all the steps. You should be able to take this to the mayor's office, plop it down on her desk, and solve the issue right there. But it was fun last year. Mayor Perry, she was awesome. She came in and talked to the kids. I know the kids got a lot out of that. They thought that the mayor is just like a local celebrity. And I know I got a lot of questions like, you know the mayor? How do you know the mayor? She's coming here? So they were really excited about that. They loved asking her questions, taking pictures with her, and just kind of listening to what her job is.
Yeah. Well, before we let you, did you have something?
No, I didn't have anything. No, all you.
Before we let you guys go, I'd love to just hear about maybe a light bulb moment where you saw a kid really, really click, really engage with what you were teaching.
I had a kid, I had him in class my first year in Mansfield, so 2 years ago. He was BC student. He was one that he liked the class because, some of his friends were in there, and, he liked that it was an exciting class, but he really couldn't care less about the actual issues we talked about. And then he joined our youth and government group last year because one of his friends joined. And then I remember day 2 walking around the State House last year. He stopped me on the way, like through one of the hallways, and he said, "This is awesome. How can I come back and do this again next year? I know I graduate, but how can I do this again?" So stuff like that was like a really cool moment because he'd never been to the State House. He was one that, he didn't dislike government, but he never really took an interest in it. And now he was looking for a way to come back. So they were looking for volunteers for the middle school the other day. I sent it to him, and he was so excited that he might have the chance to get to go back and do that again. So stuff like that, watching them kind of come into their own right and discover their own interest in it was really cool for me.
I think this year, one of my classes, there's some kids who just disengage constantly. They're like, yeah, I don't really care because it's just government. And we were going over the role of we're reading the Constitution in Article 2, we're reading the role of the president, and there's sort of a loss of what the qualifications are or lack of qualifications are. And then all of a sudden we go through what their role is, and they like, some kid just like raises his hand from the back, goes, wait a minute, you're telling me he can't do this unless he asks Congress? I'm like, well, we sort of read Article 1, so yes, Congress holds all the power of money. Congress can declare war. Congress has the ability to change things, and they write laws. So he can't do any of the things that some of these people are saying. No, that's just him trying to get people's votes. Well, wait, so he's not as powerful? No, and you can see the light bulb just went on. You're like, you're right. And then I had to point it out. So you're the ones that are voting for them. He has to ask for your vote. Then he has to ask permission. I said, he's the face guy. He's the commander and cheerleader. He's like, rah, rah, yay. Jumps up and down, does the toe touch, and goes, yay. And everybody goes, that's our president.
Yeah.
And then you're like, yay. Then he goes, yeah, hey, what's going on in the game? And Congress tells him, yeah, that we're not going to do that with France. Yeah, sorry, France, we're not going to. Yeah, that's a bad treaty. Yeah. And they're like, like light bulb went on. Thank you. It clicked.
I love
If
it.
he learns nothing else for the rest of the year, he realizes that just because somebody tells you they're powerful does not mean they're powerful.
Oof, isn't that the truth?
Yeah, that is a statement to end on. My goodness. No, thank you guys so much for joining us on here. Really appreciate it. I think that this was great. I learned a lot from you guys.
Well,
Got
thank
me
you.
all excited.
Thanks
about
for having
Thank you
us.
very much
civics
for having
education.
us.
Yeah.
We are going to take a quick little break again, and then when we come back, Carl is going to be back on here along with John Mosier, and we are going to be doing some presidential history. Carl and I may or may not be going head-to-head in trivia, so stay tuned for that.
Love it.
Ready. Welcome back to Democracy After Dark. We're here at Richland Source. My name is Carl Hunnell, back with Mariah Thomas, and fresh from the bar where he manufactured a successful presidential cocktail is John Mosier.
I needed to give it a try. I haven't tasted the Trump Pomela yet,
Yes.
so I'm trying it live for you
We'd
all.
like a live taste test, and if it's not good, keep it to yourself because John just made it.
Very good.
So there's a story.
Yes.
Barry Goldwater, 1964. He was campaigning somewhere where there was a local supporter had made he bottled soft drinks, and he produced something for the campaign called Goldwater. And as he got off the plane, Goldwater got off the plane, somebody stuck a can of this in his hand. He took a big swig, made a face, and said, "This stuff tastes like pee," but he used
yeah,
a
the
harsher,
other way,
harsher
yeah.
word for
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
So the gold water.
So
was
I was
not-
looking at her face and just,
Goldwater.
when she took a drink of the Trump Pomela.
The Trump Pomela. Making sure it wasn't gold water.
That's right.
Well, one thing I wanted to point out, folks, I told you at the jump tonight that this is not Fox News. We're not CNN. We don't do the professional broadcasting for a living. And we did have a crash a little bit ago. The whole thing shut down. And quite honestly, could happen again at any moment. The internet is a tenuous thing. Thank you, Al Gore, for giving it to us, though, when he did. So if it does happen, just come back, and we'll be back up again. Just stay with us, and again, happy to be here. All right, John, we've talked. We've made drinks. We've talked about civics. Let's get down to some nitty gritty about presidential politics. I don't want to ask this question like a political science exam, but compare and contrast this presidential election cycle, as crazy as it's been, to other election cycles we've had in the past. I mean, there's been some unprecedented things, but when you look back over American history, how crazy is this one?
Well, what I find really interesting is the actual political issues that divide the two parties right now don't seem to be all that significant. I think under Kamala Harris, the Democrats have kind of made a move to the center in many ways. Trump has taken the Republican Party toward the center on things like abortion. So why is the rhetoric so heated, given that the actual political differences are so slight? And I think it has to do with identity. It's not even so much what you think is the right answer on issue X or issue Y, but how do you identify yourself? Like, you can now tell a Republican from a Democrat on the basis of whether you go to church, whether you're a man or a woman. There are a handful of simple facts that can allow someone else to predict with something like 90% accuracy whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And it's not issues, it's just who you are.
I mean, so you're talking about identity politics. Is there any point when you look back in history that you could say, you know what, we had a big batch of identity politics in this era or that era?
It's not. I would say that's largely the case in the late 19th century. If you look at a period where there weren't huge political differences between Democrats and Republicans. I mean, Republicans maybe favored civil service reform. They wanted higher tariffs. They maybe were more likely to support prohibition, but you didn't really see major issues that starkly divided one party from the other. But it was all about identity. If you were a Republican, it meant you were maybe one of the dominant class of the Northeast, right? You were an old blue blood, for example. Or you were a banker or something, a solid citizen like that. If you were a Democrat, you were a laborer, or in the South, you were a landowner. Or if you were black in the South, you were a Republican. So it was an identity thing. It was an identity thing there also.
Right. One of the things, and I've looked at this, and I don't think it's going to happen tonight, but I'm a journalist. I love speculation. It takes 270 electoral votes for a presidential candidate to win. What happens if we don't get to 270?
Right,
If neither candidate gets to 270, have we seen that before? What happens next?
Yeah, well, in that case, it goes to the House of Representatives, where each state's congressional block votes with a single vote, so the state goes this way. And it's only happened a couple of times.
Will that be when the new Congress is seated in January or the current Congress?
It would be the new Congress.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as I say, it happened rarely. I think the founders expected it to happen more often than it actually did. They thought that it would be relatively rare that Election Day would settle who was the president.
Really?
Go ahead, Maria.
That's so interesting. I feel like I've never heard that about the Electoral College before, that, you know, it was something that maybe was intended, trying to paraphrase here, but that maybe like that kind of a process, those contingency plans were intended to be used more than they are today.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason for the Electoral College was the founders were concerned that ordinary Americans wouldn't be good at identifying somebody of national stature. I mean, everybody knew George Washington, of course, but they all expected George Washington would be the first president. But what happens after he leaves? What they expected was people at the local level would just vote for whatever local guy they knew, so that there would be a whole ton of candidates, and that they hoped at the Electoral College you would have more elites who had more of a sense of national affairs, and that they could help narrow things down and choose one. But the option of Congress was always there. But it's interesting how early in the Republic, I mean, everybody knew who Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were in 1800. So really, that particular reason for the Electoral College that the founders had didn't really turn out to be that necessary.
Okay, hold that thought for just one moment. We're not going to take a hard out. We're not taking a big break. I'm going to bring Leah Gosouris in, and Leah's going to talk to you folks about why you need to be members of Richland Source, Ashland Source, Knox Pages, so we can all pay and buy cool stuff and do this kind of cool stuff. So, Leah Gosouris, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'm Leah Gosouris. I'm the head of community investment here at Source Media Properties. I'm barging in very briefly just to mention that we are doing some exciting things here. We have a huge end of campaign coming up. I know we do it every year for our membership, but if you have been watching and live streaming, if you appreciate the work that we are doing and will continue to do, we encourage you to become a Source member. You can do that at richlandsource.com/members, ashlandsource.com, knoxpages.com/members. And we are actually running a little special right now for tonight, for one night and one night only.
We love a good special.
We love a special. We are doing 24% off because it is the 2024 election. We are doing 24% off all annual plans. So if you go to that page, like I mentioned, for example, richlandsource.com/members, you can get 24% off of your annual plan on all of our tiers. And we encourage you to do that. Once you become a Source member, you have unlimited access to all of the wonderful content that our journalists provide, and it's worth it. We believe you are worth it. Your vote is worth it. So we encourage you to do that. I would like to add, though, that all of our election coverage is free and available to everyone. We believe that that's very important, and we'll continue to stay that way. But again, if you value and appreciate the work that we're doing here, 100% of those funds go to our newsroom and to Carl's Coffee Fund
yes,
as well.
thank you very much for that. Coffee is all important.
That's right.
It
That's
is all
right.
important,
And
especially on this night.
It's very important. But we appreciate your support. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to us at membership at richlandsource.com, and we'd be happy to take care of that. But we appreciate your support.
Thank you very much, Leah. The only thing
Thank
we
you.
like more than a good special is unlimited access.
That's
If
right.
you combine those two thoughts, unlimited access and a special, you have to become a member right now.
It's truly a win-win. But we're so grateful, and yeah, enjoy.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leah.
I'm peeping out.
All right. Thank you.
I got this one clap.
All right, let's get back. I don't know how this election night's going to turn out. Nobody does yet. I mean, Maricopa County, they're talking about they're going to be counting votes in that county alone in Arizona for maybe up to 13 days.
I used to live in that county.
No wonder it takes so long to count votes. What, do they have to take their shoes off to count the votes, or they don't? Never mind.
Where are you getting this from?
I don't know. But so I don't know how it's going to turn out. But if somehow former President Trump gets elected, is that the biggest political comeback? I mean, there's only ever been, I think, one other president who got elected, reelected after he was out of office.
Yeah.
So I mean, Trump comes from January 6, 2021 to this stage. I mean, where does this political comeback rank in U.S. history?
Yeah, I mean, there are political comebacks, right? Marion Barry, mayor of D.C., gets elected after being busted for smoking crack on camera.
In a hotel room, yes.
But at the presidential level, it's hard to think of a similar case if Donald Trump wins tonight. Grover Cleveland, the only other president to win 2 non-consecutive terms, but all 3 of his races were enormously close. The second, when he lost to Benjamin Harrison, he had actually won the popular vote but lost the electoral vote. There was never a sense that Grover Cleveland was going to go off into the night. Mm-hmm. Compare this with Trump. January 6th was. The Republicans and Democrats alike came away from that saying Donald Trump's political career is over. He's not coming back after this. So let's talk about who the Republican's going to be in 2024. For him to come back, so easily get the nomination, and then to be elected again, I think that has to qualify as the biggest political, certainly the biggest presidential. And when you think about American politics, the presidency is at the very pinnacle. That's the biggest comeback I can think of.
Wow.
One of the things that always interests me as I think about this stuff is, everybody is so focused on this has never happened before. We've never had a presidential candidate who's been a Nazi. We've never had a candidate call the supporters of another candidate garbage. Yeah. I mean, and we see that we've seen these kinds of insults. Certainly, this is nothing new in the American political landscape. Certainly not in the presidential political landscape.
Right. I mean, you look at the election of 1800. There was all sorts of predictions that if Thomas Jefferson won, he was going to round up people's Bibles and steal them. So he was denounced as some kind of devil worshiper, and Adams as some religious zealot. If you look at the political rhetoric in the years leading up to the Civil War, that's absolutely brutal stuff. Abraham Lincoln was compared to a gorilla. So nasty politics is nothing new. That said, I don't know that it's ever been worse than now. The current politics is up there with the worst that at least rhetorically American politics have ever been.
Is because of social media? Has that been the thing that's kind of fueled all this?
Yeah, but it's also populism. Trump has always positioned himself as the ultimate outsider who doesn't play by the rules of Washington, D.C., and his supporters love him for that. He says stuff that no previous presidential candidate would have said. And look, if you look at, as harsh as the rhetoric was in 1800 in the campaign between Jefferson and Adams, it was not Jefferson and Adams saying those things. Right. They always had surrogates for it. Now, what is different about this time is the actual candidates are going at it. The person who used the term garbage was the president of the United States, right, to refer to supporters. Hillary Clinton talked about the usual basket of deplorables. Even she was not talking about all of Trump's supporters. But for Biden to say Trump supporters are garbage. Well, that doesn't really leave any ambiguity at all.
No.
Or calling Kamala Harris a communist, Harris suggesting that Trump's a fascist. Yeah, the gloves are well and truly off.
Well, very good. Now, I think we've reached that point where, Mariah, it's you and me, mono e woman. Well,
1 second.
hold
I
on,
think we've got a giveaway first.
Oh, a
Carl.
giveaway. A giveaway.
Giveaway.
Yes,
A giveaway. We've got
I'm getting
another
the
giveaway.
giant
Hold
G
on,
for a giveaway.
folks.
Hold the
on.
phone.
Hold the phone before we get into the presidential trivia.
The woman from Montana wants to give away
Mono
something.
on Womano.
Go ahead, Montana.
Anywho, I want our viewers
Yes.
to try and predict the final percent of voter turnout in Richland County. Get a chance to win that $50 gift card. Comment for your chance to win. We'll pick the winner who's closest to the actual percent of voter turnout here in Richland County.
So if you
put
were
that in your comments.
if you were paying attention earlier, you should have a pretty good handle on where we were 2 hours ago. So if you put
Yeah.
like 4%, you're going to be way
You're
off.
probably way off. Yeah.
All right.
Anywho, okay. Now
right. So-
to each their own. Carl, it's
Yes.
you versus me.
John,
Let's go.
John has prepared some trivia questions, and I think what we'll do is, John, I'll let you ask Mariah a question first. If she gives the right answer, she gets a point. If she misses, don't just tell her, sorry, that's wrong, and then I get a chance to steal. And we'll flip back and forth.
What if neither of us knows the answer?
Then neither one of us gets a point. This is not hard. This ain't rocket science, okay?
Okay.
What if I win?
Well, then you win, and I retire after this presidential election. Okay,
What do you
Wow, that's high stakes.
what do you give me if I win?
nothing. You get nothing. Oh, okay. There'll be something, but we'll see afterward. Maybe some floor time.
I love floor time.
Yes. Yeah, John.
Floor time.
There's a new
it's
thing.
so good.
There's a new thing going on in the workplace these days. Whenever you're feeling stressed because someone is stressing you at work,
It's
you
not just a
simply
work thing.
slide under your desk, take your computer with you, and you experience floor time.
Wow.
I had never seen this until a
No,
week or
it's
so ago.
so-
I look over, and I'd been arguing with Hayden Gray, and apparently the argument became heated enough that Mariah decided she needed floor time.
Okay, this is a real thing, actually. The New York Times Wellness section wrote a whole article about the health benefits of having floor time and, like, grounding your... Wow, Hayden's
Oh, look,
demonstrating right
Hayden's
now.
demonstrating floor time.
Hayden needed some for
Yes.
election night. He's over there running the soundboard.
Oh,
I think that might be a great way to avoid colleagues and students.
I
I'll just
I
slip
think
under
you
my
should do
desk
it.
and go on the floor.
yeah. Just
Floor
floor
time.
I
time.
think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Have floor time. See
Sweet.
what it
Right.
does for your mental health. Just give it a shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you have to watch out because you might have a minty bee.
Yeah.
A minty bee leads to floor time.
We have the podcast studio for Mentee Bees. This is
Yes.
a Carl
Yeah.
TikTok
Mental
deep cut if
breakdowns,
you
Mentee
are on
Bees.
our... Anyway,
Yeah.
let's get into
Mentee-
the presidential
Mentee
trivia.
bee. Okay, here's
Okay.
the first one.
Okay, Mariah, you're up
Mariah,
for the
you're
first
starting.
Oh,
question.
Okay.
dear.
2 elections, I said before, have gone to the House of Representatives to be settled. What years did these take place?
Do you know this one, Carl?
That's not the question. The question is, do you know it?
I don't know if I do.
Here's your chance to steal, Carl.
Okay, thank you very much.
If
I
you
don't
get-
have. I have no idea.
I have no
don't
idea.
know.
All right.
What
might
years?
be
What years
over-
were they? Yep, that's a hard pass.
1800
Yes.
and 1824.
There you have it.
Well,
who was it?
1800 was going to be one of my
Right, who was
guesses.
it in 1824?
1824 was John Quincy Adams. It was a 4-way race,
Okay.
which was fairly common in those early elections, right? It's before the parties had really solidified and started having conventions where they nominate a candidate.
Okay.
So and Andrew Jackson was one of them, and Andrew Jackson was convinced he got screwed out of the presidency. Okay.
So there you have it. One question, no points awarded.
Here's,
0 points.
Here's the next one.
My turn.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
what was the closest election in U.S. history?
That didn't go to Congress. Talk popular vote or electoral vote?
either.
Well, I'm going to say, this is wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'll go with electoral vote, and this is wrong, but Bush-Gore 2000.
You're correct.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, too bad it wasn't your question.
I'll ask you this then.
Yes.
What's the second closest?
Oh, what do you got now? Huh?
I
Big
don't
talk?
know if I don't know. I don't know. I knew the closest. What is the second closest?
1876.
Oh, I never would've gotten
Rutherford
that.
B. Hayes over Samuel J. Tilden.
Reformation Rutherford. That's how I remembered him in high school.
Aha.
That's back when you were taking your highfalutin AP
My
history
AP
classes.
US history exam.
Right. So right now, after 2 rounds, Carl won, Mariah nil. You get to go first this time.
Okay. So this one is not, I mean, this is requires a little bit longer of an answer. Why is Election Day always on a Tuesday?
I feel like I'm learning more than I know here.
I'm shocked.
Then mission accomplished.
He's a professor. He's teaching us.
Okay, I understand.
Always on a Tuesday. Ever wondered why it's always on a Tuesday?
I have actually wondered why it's always on
Yeah.
Tuesday. Did it used to be the weekend?
No.
Okay, well,
No.
I made a guess. Carl?
You know, I don't have a good answer for this, so I'm simply going to say they needed time to get to the polling place on horses and stuff, so they needed I'm going to say transportation needs.
You've got it, right?
Are you kidding?
There you have it,
couldn't
ladies and
be
gentlemen.
on-
You made
It couldn't
that
be
up?
on a Sunday.
No.
Because that was the Lord's Day. It couldn't be Monday because a lot of these people lived a long way away from a polling place, so they'd have to ride their horses. So it's a Tuesday. It's a holdover from back when there was not ease of travel.
Wow, I am appalled that you got that right.
Okay, so after 3 rounds of play,
It's now 2-0.
we have Carl 2, Mariah nil, and I get the first crack at this next question.
Okay, but we're gonna call me the comeback kid. We're gonna keep our fingers crossed. Okay, Carl?
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Pull a Donald.
All right, round 4.
Mariah.
No.
No,
Oh,
sorry.
Carl.
Carl, which president won with the largest margin of victory? So we talked about the closest election. Which is the most overwhelming, largest
The
margin of
year was 1984, and the winner was Ronald Reagan, who set a electoral college record with 525, besting, I believe, Walter Mondale, or I think it was Mondale.
It was Mondale in
Mondale,
'84,
yeah.
but the answer is wrong.
Oh,
Hillary Clinton in 2016. She had the largest popular vote win over
Not by
Trump,
percentage.
right?
Not
By number,
percentage.
though. Is that right?
You're both wrong.
oh.
The answer is James Monroe in 1820, simply because he was unopposed. This was the era of good feelings. There
It's a
was
trick
only
que-
really the Federalist Party was gone.
Rats.
The Democrats were the party.
What was the
Man.
second biggest? That had to be Reagan.
I don't
Mondale.
know. I don't think it was Reagan. I think
Okay.
it was Johnson over Goldwater in 1964.
Okay.
Reagan's up there,
LBJ.
Right.
but LBJ over Goldwater was a blowout. It was over 60%. LBJ got over 60% of the vote.
All right. So after 4 rounds, it's
I
Carl 2,
know, I
Mariah
know.
nil. Now you've got 1 chance left to score a point. This is it. Choose wisely.
Okay.
I'm feeling attacked.
Well, get some floor time later.
So, third party candidates. There's always been third parties. Who was the last third party candidate to win a state's electoral votes?
I hear the Jeopardy theme song.
I hear it being whistled back there too.
The last time a third party candidate, well, who was it and when was it, to win the state's electoral votes?
Do you know this one?
I've got a guess. I don't know if it's right. I know of a third party candidate who won some states, but I don't know if it's the most recent.
Well, weren't you talking about this earlier?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes. John Anderson did not win any states in 1980. So if that's what you're trying to.
That's what I was trying to think of. I don't want to say I don't know because I don't want to give Carl all of the points here.
An opportunity to steal.
Ooh.
But
No
unfortunately,
whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Stop.
Huh?
Final answer?
It's a trivia. It's another TV contest. Please give us an answer.
I don't have an answer.
See if you can. Okay, so
You
you're
were
saying no
supposed to
answer.
steal.
Okay, I'm going to steal. I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
try to steal.
Carl.
George Wallace, 1968.
George Wallace in 1968 actually won 5 states.
I wasn't alive.
Now, if I had phrased that question, right, here's the advantage Carl has, right?
Yes. I was
Carl
7.
was
I
alive.
was
He
He was
7.
actually riding his horse to elections, and so he knows why it's on Tuesday.
I remember Barack Obama when I was 7, but I don't remember
Oh.
George Wallace
You know,
when
yes.
I was
If I had phrased
not
that
even a
question,
twinkle.
if I had phrased that question slightly differently, the last time a third-party candidate got an electoral vote, that was actually 1972, and this is hardly anyone knows about this.
I was Nixon McGovern.
Nixon McGovern. So the Electoral College meets. One of the Nixon electors, a guy named Roger McBride from Vermont, decided to become a faithless elector, and he awarded his vote to the Libertarian candidate John Hospers. So that's the
Outstanding.
first and only time the Libertarian candidate has gotten an electoral vote. But he didn't win a state's votes; he just got
A faithless
Faithless
elector.
elector.
a faithless elector.
All right, so clearly the contest was Carl 3, Mariah 0. It went very much as I expected it to go, but thanks
I'm very
for participating.
sad.
That's okay.
I had hoped that I would have a better showing.
Well,
I
so-
would have had a point if I'd gotten to do the Bush v. Gore one first.
The bad news is your parents are watching and they now
I
know
know, they now
that your AP history class failed miserably against a poor kid that went to a regular high school in New Concord, Ohio, and took regular history classes.
Okay, well, you were alive in 1968.
I
and
was 7.
wasn't.
All right, folks, we're gonna have to take a break. One or both of us needs to visit the little boys or girls' room. A lot of coffee here tonight. When we come back, we're going to talk about what results we've seen so far. We're going to bring in Grant Ritchie and Dylan Carr to talk about Ashland and Knox County, and we'll work closer to that 10 o'clock hour when you and I are going to have to stop doing this and actually do some journalism.
We have to write stories.
Yes, and John will be back with us, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Democracy After Dark. I'm using my best radio, AM DJ radio voice.
You're doing great, Carl.
Well, I have a great face for radio.
You could do better.
Unfortunately, we're on video tonight as well. Mariah and I are now
Cooking
joined.
Dylan.
He didn't have to grease it on quick. Mariah and I are now joined by Dylan Carr from Ashland Source and Grant Ritchie, my Newsman Weekly podcast best foil from Knox Pages. So welcome to both of you. And you guys have come on to give us kind of the lowdown as best you can on what's happening in local elections in Ashland and Knox counties. And Dylan, we'll start with you. What's going on over there?
I was going to say, Dylan was telling me there's been some surprising results over in Ashland
do we
County.
want to go with local stuff? Or?
Yeah, just
Let's do
I
some
mean, if there's
local
a presidential thing or Senate
All right,
thing you
so
want to throw
big
in.
surprise. Ashland County voted no for issue 1 by a very large margin, 70% to 29%. So that's just a little taste of what's to come for some of the national, state results. Going into the local results, though, there's some surprises. Perrysville Village had an additional tax levy that they wanted for roads. It was going to produce $5 million over 5 years, and it lost. I'm hearing my feedback here. That's kind of weird. 61% to 38%. So 187 people voted against it, 119 for it. So that was a bit of a surprise. Let's see what else we got here.
And you were saying this is final. This is 100%.
Yeah, so we had a 76% turnout in Ashland County. These are final unofficial counts for the county.
Is that a record turnout, Dylan, or is that close to record turnout for Ashland County?
I would have to look back, but last night I was talking to Shannon Johnson, the deputy director for the Board of Elections. She called it. She said, I'm predicting 76% turnout.
Okay.
Or maybe she said 78% turnout. I think we had 76 last presidential election as well. So 76.3, but a little bit of a surprise with absentee and mail-in ballots. As of yesterday, that was up at like 39%. So a lot of people went out and voted early.
I was one of them.
Yep.
Look at you.
I know. Aren't you proud of me, Carl?
Early voting. Well done.
Early voting.
So another surprise for Ashland, Hillsdale Local School District. They had 2 renewal levies up on the ballot. One of them failed.
Oh my.
The one that failed was for current expenses. It was going to raise $20 million, and it failed by like a 2% margin. So it was really close. And then the other one for Hillsdale was a permanent improvement renewal levy for $1.4 million, and it also failed by like, oh my gosh, it was like 0.3% or something, or no, it was more than that. It was like a percentage. So,
both.
that passed, but it was close.
So Hillsdale split on the 2 levies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then the big one that everybody was sort of watching was the Loudonville, Perrysville Exempted Village School District, and that one failed. 1,900 against it to 1,485. So
And that was for a bond issue to build a new school?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that new school would have come with a price tag of $71 million. But, you know, the group that was for it was saying that they've tried several times in the last 20 years to get that bond issue passed, and each time it's unfortunately gone down, but that cost just keeps going up and up and up to build that new school building. They've had some struggles with their current facilities. All their buildings
all
are
their buildings are pretty
50
rundown.
plus years old. So
Is this a case, I mean, what did the superintendent say? If this doesn't pass, we're going to just have to try again?
the superintendent had said that that the district has seen struggles with the facilities, and kind of had said that if this fails, like something else is gonna have to come through to be done about these facilities because they're just, not good for kiddos to be in right now. So, and the 4 LP schools group was also very adamant that, this is kind of a big last push, like a big push to get this building right now because it is so needed out there, was kind of their what they were advocating for throughout this election cycle.
Did this building or this issue have state funding associated with it that they were going to be able to get if this had passed?
It did. So taxpayers were going to be responsible for about $53 million, I believe, of that $71 million. The state was going to contribute about $15 million, and the district had $2 million that they'd kind of put towards the building. So, had tried to cut down that cost for voters. But, was going to come at, I think it was $341 per $100,000 of, property value.
I wonder if there's definitely some extra reporting to be done, not just because of this story, but there were multiple levy renewals that failed.
Or were
so
very
what does that
margins.
say about people in Ashland County? We're all feeling the pinch with inflation and costs of everything going up, but so are the schools. They're faced with a challenge. We've got older buildings that need to be upgraded and or entirely new schools that need to be built, and people just aren't willing to foot the bill for that. And the big question is why.
Yeah.
I think part of it may be we just had that statewide reevaluation of property values. And some folks had their taxes go up because of that.
Well, and I've heard
my property taxes, they went up 49%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard several times that it's a pretty rough environment for a levy to pass right now. I know that was something that I heard repeatedly last year when Mapleton local schools also had, a levy on the ballot.
Well, I wonder what they're doing to get the message out, and are they hitting the pavement? Are they going and knocking on doors like candidates are, or are they kind of relying on people to come to them?
Well, I know in Loudonville, that 4 LP schools group was doing a lot of work, kind of hosting community Q&A nights, inviting the public to come and meet with them and converse about all of these building improvements, invited the public to tour the schools several times, was at the Loudonville Street Fair. So, we're really making some concerted efforts there. But
they're
yeah,
getting out. You have to ask, what can we do?
Right, what
better
else is there to be done? Yeah.
To get the message out and to get people out to, vote in favor of this kind of stuff.
I think you're right.
There goes the water. Fortunately, the lid was on it.
I think you're right that there's some more reporting to do there. So as the education reporter, can't wait to dig in.
Hint, hint.
All right.
Yay.
Anything else from Ashland County, or can we unleash Grant Ritchie to give us some information about Knox?
I don't know. I mean, we can talk about some of the national candidates and how Ashland County voted for some of these candidates.
Go ahead on.
Yeah. So I mean, it's no secret that Ashland County is a Republican county. There are lots of registered Republicans in Ashland. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance ticket received 19,444 votes. Just to give you kind of some perspective, there are 34,756 registered voters in Ashland County, and so well over half of the people voted for Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and same thing, same story down the ballot. I mean, every person with Republican initials after their name received, huge margins.
Yeah, unsurprising. Like you said, Ashland's definitely a Republican county. So
Very good. Mr. Ritchie, what can you tell us about what's happening
Sir.
in Knox County?
Let's start with County Commissioner. Now, we hosted a October 1st debate between Republican candidate Barry Lester and Democrat candidate Chuck Rogers at the Woodward Opera House, the historic Woodward Opera House. And they're going to be replacing County Commissioner Teresa B. Miller's seat. She's not seeking re-election. So we had an open seat there. Knox County is a Republican county, and so put that in context. They voted for Barry Lester. He won pretty handedly with 70% of the vote, and Democrat Chuck Rogers was defeated with 29% of the vote. So we got that. We had 2 city referendums on the ballot. But one of them was for a rezoning of a street called Vernon View Drive. It was rezoned to P&D from R1, so it
What-
allowed like town.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Just
it was going to
P&D
allow
to R1.
townhouses and
Okay.
things like that. You think of like R1, it's like a regular house you'd see, and then if you're thinking like
Okay.
a residential area where like all the houses are lined up, but like it looks like a traditional house. These would be like townhouses where maybe like half of them are like divided.
So would that be to allow for like more rental
Condensed housing.
space, or
Yeah, it
okay.
would allow for more ideally more housing in
Okay.
an area.
Gotcha.
That was voted no, so that is not going to happen. It's going to stay R1 housing. That was 65% of the vote, and then 34% voted for the referendum. And then we had another one on Edgewood Road improvement project. This one was for the city to go out to design for the project, which would encompass just a redevelopment of that road. And some residents didn't like it, thinking it was potentially going to tear down some housing, widen the street, and was also going to increase traffic there. Those were some of the concerns. That also failed, so that project is not going to be moving forward in its current state. So that also failed with 63%. 36% voted yes for that. So we had some levies on here. One of them was for Fredericktown Fredericktown Recreational District, which is basically the park district in the Fredericktown and surrounding township areas. It was a replacement levy, so they were asking for some new money. I think it was a 1.5 mil levy. That failed pretty narrowly. It was 52% to 47%, so 52% against the levy.
Rough night to be levies.
Yeah, well,
Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee
Till the
failed.
levee was dry.
Dry.
Them good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, Carl. Maybe that'll be us later.
oh sorry. Oh wait, sorry.
Singing,
Maybe
this will
now.
be the day
I had
that
the
I
wrong.
die.
I had the wrong numbers on that. It was 56.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, 56%,
Oh, Grant.
43%.
Journalists doing math.
And
Come
then-
on.
And then we had a Central Ohio Joint Fire District, which is in the Centerburg area and the surrounding townships. That they asked for also a replacement levy. That also failed. It was 52% to 47%. And then we had a renewal levy for the East Knox Fire District. That was a renewal, so that passed pretty handily. It was 66%. So that is really it for. And we had an uncontested county commissioner race with Drenda Cassie, and she was running unopposed, so she won that. And then we had a sheriff race that was uncontested with Dan Weckesser, and he obviously won that.
Yeah,
Uh,
all of our races were uncontested too.
Yep.
Nobody wants to run against them.
President, vice president, we had about 27% go to Harris and Tim Walz. And then for Trump and Vance, we had 70%.
Gotcha.
Issue 1,
Kamala got more in Knox County than in Ashland County
Dum dum.
by like
issue
4%.
1, let me see if I can find that.
It'd be the first issue. Hence issue
I
one.
was gonna say I
Isn't
would be
it the only issue?
I would be.
Yeah,
it's the only
state
issue on
issue.
the ballot.
Okay.
I was
The
gonna say,
only issue.
I would be surprised if
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they
Knox
they
County
voted no
for
on
it.
that. I just can't
Yep.
find it right here, but the percentage. But
yeah, I'm
How is
also,
that doing right
I
now?
have
Like, what do
no
we
idea.
know?
Yeah, I've not looked.
we
haven't
have
seen.
not been. We've been on the
Let's check
live
it out.
stream, Dylan.
I have to say, I did just get a text a few minutes ago from my wife who's watching at home. She said, "Get off your phone. People are watching." And I texted her back and I said, "I'm looking up election results."
Marcy.
So I can tell you, Richland
we love
County
you, Marcy.
has counted 19 of 83 precincts. The Mansfield schools levy issue with that percentage, actually they've got
Yeah, I'm
6
curious on
of
this.
26 precincts, 23% is failing, 6848 to 3056 for the Mansfield
So it's
City
failing
School.
so far.
So far, but there's a lot of votes to be counted yet there. We're going to get through this real quick. Clerk of Courts, Denise Rule, the incumbent who looks like she's trying to be retained, has 25,000 votes. Challenger Chris Adams has 11,400. Race for County Commissioner Darrell Banks has 25,600. Challenger Aaron Williams has 11,567. State Representative Marilyn John has 25,943. Emily Williams, 11,629. And for State Senate, which is 3 counties, is Mark Romanchuk and Kathy Salem. In Richland County, Mark Romanchuk has 26,000 votes. Kathy Salem has 11,314. So we're going to take a quick break. You got
Real
something?
quick,
Yep.
since we brought it up, issue 1 statewide looks like it's no right now. 1.9 million to 1.6 million. So 1.9 million voted no, 1.6 yes.
Given
But
the
we still
I
have
was-
time, right? We
Yep.
I was gonna say that's the other issue that I'm following tonight. So I'll be hopping on and jumping into the
well,
fray.
you're not
about,
following it right
Yes,
now.
You're not following it right
I'm
Okay.
following
Well,
it.
Yes.
I'll be jumping into the fray here soon enough.
Given the fact that Donald Trump is going to win Ohio, and he came out against
I was
issue
gonna
1,
say-
I'm not shocked to see issue 1
Yeah.
not
Yes.
faring well.
Issue 1 seemed like it was a very
Well, if you read
partisan.
the issue too, it said requires gerrymandering,
Right.
yeah.
and
so
that's like,
actually,
who wants that?
Yeah,
I-
well, yeah.
I had to get very into
Like
the
we don't have
weeds on
enough
this one.
gerrymandering as it is. Now we're going to require it?
Yeah, it's required
I had to get very
by law.
I had to get very into the weeds on this one, and I had some conversations with my editors because I was down many a rabbit hole trying to research this because there are
A lot of
very
floor
many,
time involved in this process.
You know, on yes, there. I'm not going to lie to you, but anyway,
Well, thank you for that.
there was actually a lawsuit over the
Yeah.
ballot language on this
Yeah.
one because the group that was advocating for that amendment was the I believe it was the Secretary of State's office rewrote the ballot language and they tried to sue and it was a whole
Citizens,
thing,
not
so-
politicians. Yeah.
Right. So it was a whole thing. So there was actually a conflict about that ballot language. Fun factoid that didn't make it into my final story just because too many moving pieces and wanted to keep it simple so that folks kind of understood what they were voting for and what it was about.
Well, it was so long too. So who actually read it all when they're
Yeah, you had to-
standing in
you
the
had to
ballot?
scroll
Right.
down a few times in order
Yeah.
to get it all.
Yeah. Anywho.
All right, folks, we're going to take a very short break. And when we come back, Mariah and I will be joined by John Mosier. And we're also going to bring in Adam Fox, who I believe is still in the building somewhere. He's our resident anarchist. And we're going to have him talk about it. Give his
Adam
views.
Guy Fox.
Adam Doc Fox. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it'll be our last segment. Do we have any more giveaways? One
We'll
more
have
giveaway.
one more.
So stick around for that. You want to get your shot at $50. So hang in. We'll be back in just a minute.
Carl was not focusing right before we came back here.
I'm very
Sorry,
focused.
Walt.
I've been focused all evening. Welcome back, everybody, to the final segment of Democracy After Dark.
And I'm shocked Carl hasn't kicked me off yet.
We're not done yet. Actually, I promised your father I wouldn't, but that was something I didn't really want to discuss. And
Oh.
I'm making that part up. Anyway, we're rejoined by John Mosier from Ashland University, and also from Ashland, our resident anarchist.
It's so good to see you. And I know everybody's like, oh, what does that mean? It's very simple. We just abolish the federal government, but we'll let you ask the questions, and I don't want to jump ahead.
Well, thank you for allowing me. Thank you for allowing Mariah and I to host our own show.
You're doing a phenomenal job, by the way.
Thank you very much for
very
that.
much.
Before we get to the anarchist, and Adam explains why he thinks the federal government should be abolished, John, kind of final thoughts on this election night. I've not heard a lot about presidential election numbers. If somebody wants to shout out kind of how this thing is going, what have you seen?
I'm following it. Right now, Trump is estimated at 178 electoral votes, Harris with 99. Thing is, there haven't been any surprises so far. Everyone knew Kamala Harris was going to get Illinois and New York, that Trump was going to get Ohio and Texas and Florida. We could be hearing any time now about states like Virginia and North Carolina and Georgia, where it's very close. Pennsylvania, we could hear any time now. That's obviously the state that all eyes have been on this entire campaign. So it's still very much up in the air, but the odds makers seem to be moving in Trump's direction.
Are you surprised? I mean, if this goes this way, I mean, we talked earlier about kind of the biggest political comeback. I mean, your overall thoughts about how did Trump do this, if indeed he does make it back and win?
He has hammered on a few hot button issues: immigration, inflation, bad trade deals, so tariffs. And even though he is not what you would call a disciplined candidate, anybody who's heard him speak publicly knows he goes in a million different directions. He has shown to a considerable extent an ability to stay on message and hammer on these themes very consistently. And there's a big chunk of the population that simply likes him. Here's another thing. I can't help but think that part of the problem on the Democrat side is Kamala Harris is a woman. We are getting reports that that much bigger chunks of the Hispanic and the black vote are going for Trump than we have seen in decades, probably ever for the Hispanic vote. And that, I think, is going to be attributed to a great extent to black and Hispanic men who don't want to see a woman president.
So, John, can I ask? So, obviously, many other countries at this point have had women in their top leadership roles. Why does America seem to struggle with the idea of a woman being at that top of the ticket?
Yeah, I think that this is I don't think that this is a huge factor, but it's making a difference at the margin. So in order for a Democratic president to win, they've got to take a huge chunk of the black vote, a huge chunk of the Hispanic vote.
Right.
They're losing just enough of it that I think is attributable to that. I think if this election were if we leave that category out, I think that there wouldn't have been trouble with electing a female candidate. One might argue that this has not been the best candidate that could have been marshaled for the occasion. Right. But I think that when this election is picked apart, as it undoubtedly will be in the weeks and months to come, that a lot is going to be attributed to the vice president's gender.
Is that something that we saw when Hillary Clinton was also at the top of the ticket back in 2016?
True, but I don't think we saw it as much then. In fact, I remember in the aftermath of that election, there being a lot of accusations that white women weren't there for Hillary Clinton.
Do you think we'll see those same accusations with Kamala Harris, or is it too soon to tell?
It's too soon. We might find that as well. So the odd thing is, if Kamala Harris is losing the election because she's a woman, if it's actually the female vote that is really that's really hurting her.
You touched on the lead up to this a bit ago, the primary, the fact that there wasn't a true Democratic primary. Is it that the Black and Latino voters didn't get to know her, or there wasn't a groundswell around this? I mean, I remember Obama's first campaign. It was like there was hope, right?
Right.
There was this audacity of hope, right?
Right.
So how much of the primary do you think, if in fact it does trend the way it's kind of going?
Yeah, the fact is, Kamala Harris has always remained kind of an unknown. She ventured into the race in 2019. She was out even before the end of 2019. She was doing very poorly, and she got picked by Biden as vice presidential candidate. And how much had we heard about her for the last 4 years? Mm-hmm. And now she got the nomination under unusual circumstances, as you say. And I would have expected her to be out there talking, doing press conferences, for example, being interviewed by more people. I think that something else that's going to come up with this gets analyzed. If she loses, and by the way, I'm not making any predictions at this point. It could still go her way. But if she loses, I think that some of the post-mortem is going to look at her and say, how much did the American people really know about her? People knew plenty about Trump. I mean, they may not like it, but he was out there. He wasn't making any secret of his views.
Gotcha.
All right, we're going to come back in just a minute. We have a giveaway.
One more for the night.
That we have to get to.
I was going to say.
a couple more questions, and we'll wrap things up. Get ready, folks. It's a giveaway time.
Comment for your chance to win a $50 Visa gift card.
$50.
And the prompt is, if I were mayor, I would ... And Carl's favorite answer on this one wins the day.
There you go, folks. All you got to do is
think how Carl would think.
No, don't think the way Carl would. Think the way you think, and just entertain me with your answer. That's all I ask.
If I were mayor, I would.
And by the way, it's mayor of whatever town you want it to be. It can be if I was the mayor of Ashland, or sorry, Matt Miller.
If I were mayor of Ashland, I would keep the pumpkin people there for forever.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It is the pumpkin. It's the pumpkin people referendum.
Matt, if you're watching this, my personal suggestion to you.
John, I have one more question for you, and then Doc, I want to get to you with one final question. How big a difference did J.D. Vance make? You have a presidential candidate who has a difficult time staying on message.
Yeah.
It seemed like Vance was someone who, and obviously vice presidents don't make the big difference, but Vance seemed like somebody who kind of stayed on message once you got past the cats and dogs in Springfield fiasco.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. I don't know. I mean, his unfavorable ratings have been consistently pretty high. And then when he was first chosen, we thought, well, why choose an Ohio? And you've got a lock on Ohio. That maybe he should have done something like his pick of Pence last time, a regular Republican. But given how Pence, Trump supporters regard Pence as something of a traitor.
Yes.
So I guess I'm not surprised that he would go in that direction. I don't know that that Trump's pick of Vance has made all that much of a difference at all.
All right. Mr. Fox.
Let's close it out with some stuff nobody cares about. Anarchy. Let's do it.
You know what? I'm going to give you like 90 seconds of just unbridled anarchy. What do you got to say?
All right. I just, it's like this electoral college, and I'm just like, I like a popular vote. It's like, okay, what color do we want to paint the walls? And like 5 out of 7 people like vote to color it pink. Let's put it pink, you know what I mean? How we basically dictate every aspect of our lives. So on the general sense, like we have a bloated system of education, finance, IRS. I think it's just time to say the federal government experiment, the way that we set it up, didn't work.
We had a good run.
We had a good run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that's sad, and I know a lot of people are gonna, think I'm like not patriotic. No, I love this country. In fact, I can like even talk like this, and I love the election. But so we just strip it all down. We give it back to the states, and we rearrange the states a little bit more. Delaware, you don't get to be your own state anymore. Wyoming, you don't get any more vote weight than somebody else in California. I know that sucks. So everybody gets the same vote. It's a crazy concept. And we just strip it all down, and we have state militias, and they get together if, Canada should attack. And that's just it. And everybody's taxes are like, basically zero, because we're not paying federal taxes. And it's great. And that's just pretty much it. And you can vote for me in 4 years when I run for a president that doesn't exist.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
If there's no federal government, then why does the weight of Wyoming matter?
I'm just saying that's an example of why our bloated federal government has failed.
Oh, I see.
Yes, currently.
Now, if this was, and John, I based upon what Adam just said, I have a question for you. I wasn't going to bother you again tonight, but let's go back to states' rights, Adams, Jefferson. That's how long ago this debate's been going on, or who should have more control, the federal government or the state government. How long,
Federalist Papers.
Oh yeah,
That one from Hamilton.
Sure, yeah. The Federalist. This was a major theme of the Federalist Papers.
Alexander Hamilton.
Alexander,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm more a James Madison guy personally, but props to Alex H.
The musical did wonders.
But this idea balance between state and federal power, it seems to me, was decided in favor of the federal government quite some time ago, maybe during the New Deal, but the big age of states' rights probably passed in the '60s. The last great age of talking about states having rights. They don't have much relevance anymore.
So you've got your work cut out for you, Doc.
I do.
Folks, we're going to wrap this up for tonight. I thank everybody that's been with us tonight, including those shouting corrections to me in the background. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
John, thank you very much for being here with us tonight.
My phone just gave me my bedtime reminder.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, perfect. We've got great timing then.
My thanks to Katie Ellington Sorrow and the good teachers from Mansfield Senior for being here earlier. My thanks to Hayden Gray and Zach Heiser for keeping the wheels spinning.
Woo! Yeah.
Great tech team.
Got to tell you, folks, this is not something we've tried before, not to this extent that we've done tonight. So much like the United States, we remain a giant, grand experience and experiment.
Absolutely.
So, Mariah, you made it through the whole show.
I'm shocked. Carl was saying he might kick me off early, so I'm glad that I made it through the whole show. And thank you, Carl, for hosting and organizing and just being an institution of knowledge in
An
this
institution.
here
Thank
community.
you for being institutionalized.
Institutional knowledge.
All right, folks, go watch Fox, CNN. We'll all follow this madness together. We still don't know and may not know for days or weeks who the next president's going to be. So hang in there.
Catch me stress baking and having floor time.
Yes, everybody grab some floor time, and we'll see you at some other point in the future. Have a great night.